Welcome to the Keiser Report. I'm Max Keiser. Oh, go down, Moses. Away down to Egypt's land. Tell King Pharaoh to let my people go. Building all your pyramid schemes and starving as a result. Let my people go. Boy, that was quite a spirited rendition of this. Hello there.
Spiritual. You don't sound like Robeson or Louis Armstrong there, though, do you?
No, Louis Satchmo. Satchmo. We're going down a little bit Egypt town. Yeah, Louis Armstrong, baby. Hello, Daddy.
Well, I reckon we're in the times of the pharaohs again, because every time I look around at the schemes that the governments impose upon us, they're not making money. They're losing money on every investment they make. So I wonder, you know, at the time of the pharaohs, they were able to do all sorts of things like build pyramids that there would be, if you had to pay for it, no real money for it. So they didn't care about the cost of it. And I want to look at this first headline, speaking of being sold down the river. And that is Ministers' Shale Gas Hype Attacked. Ministers have completely oversold the potential shale gas, energy experts say. Researchers from the UK Energy Research Centre told the BBC promises of lower prices and greater energy security from UK shale gas were hype and lacking in evidence. Now, this is, of course, one of our favorite stories just because it is so lacking in evidence and it's so transparent that they're losing money in the U.S., certainly they're going to lose even more money here.
That's right, it's a hoax. The shale industry is a complete hoax. They don't make any money, and now people are starting to wake up to it and write about it. But let's get back to your original point, which is that the people, the pharaohs in this case, are doing this because they want the gas themselves, and they're willing to pay anything for the gas. It's pharaohs of ancient Egypt. They wanted something to be buried in, so they got the people, the slaves, or the middle class, to build the pyramid at a cost that made no economic sense. There was no economic justification for building the pyramid as such. So what you're saying is that these potentates, they need oil and gas for their Mercedes and their Bentleys and their jets and their helicopters, so they're going to have people in the country frack for energy, even though it makes no economic sense to satisfy their individual needs.
It doesn't make economic sense in our current paradigm of the capitalism that we know. So we often have said it's neo-feudalism, but I think even in neo-feudal terms, they have to make a return. So I'm saying that the only time I could think of in my head from history that I've read is that this is like the times of the pharaohs, where they are beyond such petty things as the cost of a loaf of bread.
No, it's Vanity Pharaoh economic modeling. That the vanity of the pharaoh, in this case the elites that run the United Kingdom, they want energy, they want oil, they want gas. So they're willing to throw the entire economy of the country into the garbage dump to get it. It makes no economic sense, but they want it individually as a potentate.
Well, it could be that. It could be beyond that. They're just showing the people to shut up and stop talking to us.
Because they want their energy.
And just like, we're going to step over you and walk over you and your dirt and your mud and you're going to be turned into our pyramids.
Well, they're not paying them a wage.
That's right. And so let's look at what this UK Energy Research Centre said. This is Professor Jim Watson, and he said it's very frustrating to keep hearing that shale gas is going to solve our energy problems. There's no evidence for that whatsoever. It's hype. It's extraordinary that ministers keep making these statements. They clearly want to create a narrative, but we are researchers. We deal in facts, not narratives, and at the moment there is no evidence on how shale gas will develop in the UK. Shale gas has been completely oversold. Where ministers get this rhetoric from, I have absolutely no idea. Is very misleading for the public. It's like, so they're creating the narrative, the hieroglyphics on the wall, those little, they always looked one way, right?
Walk like an Egyptian. Da-da-da, da-da-da, da-da-da. Hey, it's like, down there with not the Incas, but the Aztecs. Didn't they chop people's heads off? And they went rolling down the pyramid because that was their economic justification. There was some Aztec king's mind that made sense that, hey, we need to cut some heads off down there at the chopping block.
Yeah, but those Aztec sort of empires were created at the same time. These all were, they lived in the same sort of economic paradigm where costs, these sort of costs that we're used to of how much a loaf of bread or a pint of milk costs, those things didn't enter their equation.
But their vanity monarchs gone completely amok, and they are running roughshod over the population, and this has led to the Dark Ages and the Middle Ages. It wasn't until the Enlightenment Enlightenment and enlightened self-interest as a concept, as articulated by Adam Smith in Wealth of Nations, which came out 1776, the same day or year as America came out. And, but we've repudiated all the concepts of enlightened self-interest. Now we have the potentate's interest, and only the potentate's interest.
The pharaohs. Let's call them pharaohs. They're pharaohs, not potentates. They're pharaohs. And this is what we're talking about.
Pharaoh. Let's be happy.
No, you can't sing because we don't have copyright. So don't sing. Don't sing. Don't sing.
Sorry, Will.
So, okay, so let's talk about these pharaohs and what they're talking about. Revealed how the world gets rich from privatizing British public services. Again, here we are told that the government is in our, the one that 99.9% of the world currently live in this capitalist system, that they need to earn a return, and the private sector does it better. Well, so under this guise, under this, the hieroglyphics of this narrative of what they're telling us is that they're going to make a return on privatizing that which was formerly run by the government. Well, according to The Independent, swathes of Britain's energy, transport, and utility networks are run by companies owned by other European governments, meaning foreign exchequers reap the dividends while UK customers struggle with increasing fares and bills. In the past 2 years alone, overseas taxpayers have taken dividends totaling nearly £1 billion from companies which make their profits from UK households and passengers. So £1 billion taken by governments who are actually owning, under privatization schemes, the public services of here in the UK. Now remember, David Cameron and George Osborne were well, they say, telling a little white lie to the public that they're not going to pay this £1.7 billion tax bill that they owe to the European Central Bank or Commission, whatever. But here's $1 billion that they're happily sending over to European governments all over the place.
I love this story. It shows the idiocy of leadership in the United Kingdom. So they are privatizing good income-producing properties like transportation, hospitals,
energy, rail,
education, and they sell these off to the efficient private enterprises that are bringing efficiency to the United Kingdom. Well, it turns out that those efficient private enterprises that they're selling their income-producing assets here in the UK to are foreign governments.
Yeah.
So foreign governments are now reaping the income from transportation, hospitals, and education here in the UK to pay pensioners in Germany, France, all over Europe.
Singapore, Hong Kong, Qatar.
Right.
Yeah. So in fact, let's look at who owns what here in the UK. In the rail and bus industry, German and French taxpayers are the biggest players, with German state-owned Deutsche Bahn and French state-owned Keolis running large chunks of the networks. But Hong Kong also owns UK rail and bus operators, while taxpayer funds in Singapore, China, and Qatar are big investors in the Heathrow Express rail route. In EDF, the French energy giant owned by the state of France, partly owned by the state of France, they are huge players in the energy markets here. So all of these are going back there. And again, it's kind of like the times of the pharaohs, as the pharaohs, for geopolitical purposes, would sell off swathes of their slaves and trade slaves back and forth with each other.
Right. German state pension account is in surplus. The UK state pension account is in deficit and rapidly depreciating, as is the American state pension system. Why? Because all the income is now being benefit of German people, because the German government bought the privatized assets from the UK.
Yes. Well, in fact, they make that exact point in this article where they say that the purpose of privatization was meant to bring the business acumen of the corporate sector into public utilities. Increasingly, it has allowed foreign governments and their state-owned operators to make vast profits out of the UK. As a result, vast amounts of British citizens' bills and fares leave the country in the form of dividends to taxpayers in continental Europe, funding their schools and hospitals, and also keeping fares down in places like Germany and France by, scalping from the UK rail passengers.
Right, so it's not privatization, it's intergovernmental passive income wealth transference scheme.
Yes. And it's ideological because what they point out, for example, is that the East Coast mainline rail system, well, the previous private owners, or genuine private owners of that, couldn't make a profit for that. So what happened is they gave their contract back to the government. And so they cite how the East Coast mainline rail route was handed back to the taxpayer in 2009 by National Express because the company could not make enough money from the contract. Since then, it has been run as a, quote, directly operated railway, i.e. from the government, and performed well and with healthy surplus to the UK taxpayer. However, the government has decided to sell it to the private sector again, with the French government-controlled Keolis and Eurostar among the bidders. So it's making a profit. The profit is going back to the taxpayer, just like what Ellen Brown talks about these state-owned banks like in North Dakota. All the profit goes back to the actual system rather than leave the system like private equity, extracting the equity from here and sending it to Germany or Singapore or Hong Kong or France.
Right. The railway, hospitals, education are basically utilities that are guaranteed an income. People don't stop using the transportation system. There's no need for having competing transportation system within a transportation system. You don't want the destination at point B competing with where you're debarking from at point A and then get lost in the middle. That's not, it doesn't make any frickin' sense. For the state to act as a monopsony to provide the single greatest buyer to feed the utility, which is the basis upon which then you build a competitive economy on top of that, that makes sense. But this government decided to pull the rug out from underneath the utility value of transportation, hospitals, and education, take all that passive income and give it to German people who are now sitting on the beach taking up the, Germans are the worst tourists in the world. They come early, they put out their blankets all over the best places on the beach, and then the, hapless Brits show up, after they just got beat up at a football match, wondering where all the good places at the beach have been taken by Germans, because you gave them all your income, you freaking idiots.
Well, the other thing is, of course, you can't have competition on the rail system because unless you're willing to just tear up the entire countryside with hundreds and hundreds of competing rail lines. Of course not. You have just like one rail between London and Liverpool or some other place outside of London, because nowhere else outside of London really counts, right? But so they talk about ScotRail, for example, and only last month the ScotRail franchise was offloaded to the Netherlands state-owned Abellio. And Christian Wolmer, a rail analyst, said of this deal, he said, it's a completely daft situation where state-run companies in foreign countries can bid for our rail services, but UK ones cannot. It is specifically banned by law for the likes of Transport for London or directly operated railways to bid for UK rail contracts. So not only is it just shows also the ideological nature of this. Is like just you, the taxpayer who lives here, uses these services. We're ideologically against you profiting from this system. We will let our foreign pharaoh friends own this and operate it for us. But you, the taxpayer here, cannot profit from it.
Right. It's the suicide banker model, and it makes no economic sense, and it's a complete hoax. And I think we've got to move on. But I want to thank you so much for that, darling.
Go down, Moses Keiser.
Yeah, get down with your badass self. Stay tuned for the second half, a whole lot more. Welcome back to the Keiser Report. I'm Max Keiser. Time now to turn to medical doctor and crypto bullion maker Mike Murphy and his crypto bullion business partner Tiago Lorenzo. Gentlemen, welcome to the Keiser Report.
Hi, Max. Very good to be here.
All right, this is a follow-up on a story that I think is fundamentally going to change the world economy in 2015 because we're combining crowdfunding, crypto, and bullion. It's a triple threat. Here's the latest. This is the Max Coin Crypto Bullion item. It's made in Portugal, thanks to you. Designed and really in Ireland, thanks to you. Mike, let's turn to you first. Talk a little bit about this empire and banker killer, the crowdfunded crypto bullion.
Yeah, so the crypto bullion concept, it's one that we had been thinking about for a while. It's been in the back of our mind for quite some time. But in July, we started this project on StartJoin. We had an initial funding target of $5,000 to raise to get this coin made. We blew past that in a day. Eventually.
Yeah, it started at 5,000. It quickly went to 100,000 because it shows there's a global need for this type of thing. In Ireland, they know what happens when bankers take over a country and destroy the economy. In Portugal, talk a little bit, Tiago, about what's happening in Portugal at this very moment.
Very recently, there is a big scandal with the big bank that went bankrupt. Recently, 2 days ago, the ex-prime minister went arrested. It's big scandals that happen every day with banks, with the politicians, and it's all over Europe. It's not only in Portugal. Happening everywhere, right?
And people are worried that their sovereignty, their economic sovereignty is being threatened. And so they're turning to gold, silver, crypto. And with a crowdfunding platform like a StartJoin, for example, this is all able to come together. So you two guys met. This is the greatest thing about this new economy is you two guys met. You had the silver. In Portugal, you sourced the silver there. You had this design. You came together on StartJoin. You raised the money. And now these things are still, you know, flying out the door. People want this because they get the silver in case of a banking collapse. But in case they have trouble moving the bullion around, of course, that's where the crypto comes in, right?
Exactly.
Michael, talk
exactly.
a little bit.
For sure, this is the 1-2 punch, as it were, for the banking system. So, you know, as you know yourself, we have banks, central banks all over the world. They are hell bent on inflation, hell bent on devaluing currencies worldwide. So, you know, with the stock market at all-time highs, with, you know, property bubbles springing up here, there, everywhere. You know, where is there for people to go? Where is the safety? You know, there is nowhere. So, you know, since 2011, we've seen, you know, the price of silver and gold. They've been coming down for, you know, 3-4 years straight. So, I mean, if there was ever a time to get into these markets, it is now.
Well, let's look at one, you know, up close here. So, what is the process here? Because so minting a silver coin like this, I'm pretty familiar with how that works, but then on the coin itself is a hologram, right? And in the hologram is the public key for a stash of cryptocurrency, which then can go on the internet and you can use it as money and you can buy stuff, and it's right there as a hologram. How does the hologram work?
So basically, the coin itself serves as a vehicle to invest in both of these assets simultaneously. So essentially, we have a tamper-evident hologram on the face of one of those coins. So on the front of the hologram, we have the public key, the address associated with a public key. So you peel off the hologram, and behind the hologram is the private key. So this is essentially the password to this address. So you take that key, you load it into your computer, the wallet on your computer, and you can transact those currency units instantaneously.
What's interesting about these coins is that there was a project similar to it was just a bullion, maybe 2.5 years ago or so. It was the silver Keiser. And those things on eBay now are trading for hundreds of dollars a piece as collector's items.
Yeah, and that's one of the things we want to do also with this coin. We want to add value to it, just not bullion and crypto, also as a collector item. Exactly. So we plan to limit the mintage. And this, I think, in a few years on eBay, is going to happen the same thing. For example, it's going to go...
Yeah, so you have
big prices.
You've got the collector premium, you've got the bullion, you've got the crypto. But the main point here is that I remember when Cyprus went down, the price of Bitcoin went from 40 to 200 as people flocked to get their money out of that country in a way that was undetectable by the authoritarian empire supporting kleptocrats running that country, running Europe, running America, running the United Kingdom. So as the banking crisis looks like it's about to resume with another wave of bank failures, you know, the Bitcoin price and all crypto prices are set to probably make another big move, including bullion. What do you think, Mike?
For sure. I mean, at the moment, this coin is retailing $50 per coin. If you go back to 2011, the price of silver alone was $50. So, you know, what seems like, you know, a premium today will be a discount in the future. You know, the cryptocurrency we're using is Maxcoin. So Maxcoin caused a huge stir when it was initially launched.
Launched on this show.
On this show, thanks to you. So in February, you know, there was huge attention towards this cryptocurrency. So at the moment, it's trading quite cheaply. You can pick it up, you know, very bargain prices, and it has the same utility value as Bitcoin. So if you're an investor looking to invest in these markets, why would you buy a Bitcoin for $400 if you can invest in an altcoin for 1 cent? It is fundamentally the same technology, you know, and I think Bitcoin will be, you know, it's the mainstream crypto, okay? This is where the capital will flock towards crypto, but Bitcoin will drag up the altcoin markets with it.
Let me ask you, the community on the StartCoin crowdfunding platform, they demanded that you create something similar for the StartCoin, which is the cryptocurrency for the StartJoin platform. And that's also simultaneously available on the platform. So this gives people a way to support that community. What's the difference between, let's say, the Start coin, which is a crypto coin, and the Max coin, and how do you see that?
Well, you know, as you said, there was a huge demand. Startcoin is the cryptocurrency for the StartJoin platform. You know, a lot of it's very useful. It's being, you know, as a crypto, it is supporting crowdfunding. Maxcoin, you know, had no pre-mine. There was zero, you know, coins pre-mined by the developers at the launch. So it was completely fair, free market currency. So everyone started from the same base. You know, I think both have incredible utility value. They're incredibly undervalued, and I think it would be, you know, an excellent investment for anyone looking to
because they're using StartJoin platform to fund development of MaxCoin. So there's definitely a sister, you know, relationship there.
Yeah.
And going forward, you know, just to explain, the StartCoin is pre-mined so that we can do our weekly quantitative easing for the people. So people who hold it on the site, they get free coins every Friday, just at an annualized rate of like 25 to 27%. They're just making coins. We give coins to projects. We give the coins away to help fuel that economy using crypto quantitative easing. That's the best way to compete with the Bank of England, the Federal Reserve Bank, ECB, and these other kleptocracies that are just printing money and giving it to crooks, whether it's HSBC,
That's what it is.
Barclays, JP Morgan. Over the last 2 or 3 years, I mean, in Ireland, you know, they're back to the streets.
Oh, for sure.
Because of the water charge.
Yeah.
You know, the state said we need to have to impose austerity. We're going to bail out Anglo-Irish Bank for billions and billions of euros. That was a hoax because the people are now being gouged with water. Where's the mentality of the revolution in Ireland? I know Sinead O'Connor was just on television saying she wants a second Republic of Ireland. Is the revolutionary spirit, is it back on the front burner, Mike?
It is. I mean, the Irish people want liberty. We've only recently gained our liberty from you know, the British, the Crown.
Well, 4/5 of the country has gained its liberty.
True, very, very true. But I think the problem in Ireland at the moment is that people don't know what to protest against. So they're angry at the government for bailing out the banks. They're angry at the institutions that have failed them, the regulators. What they should be angry about is the currency. It's the ECB. They don't understand that the biggest tool of oppression they're holding in their pockets. So what we need is, you know, a new wave of people to understand this, to stop using euros and to transition to the new monetary paradigm. And this is what we, MaxCoin, StartJoin, we're creating a new ecosystem, a new economy. This is what we need to do. We need to break away from the fiat paradigm and move toward a new monetary paradigm.
Now, Tiago, you share something with Mike. It's called the euro.
Yeah.
And do you share the sentiment toward the euro there in Portugal? What are your thoughts?
In fact, the euro is, I mean, when you hold the euros, you don't know if you're gonna protect your economies. Basically, what happened in Cyprus? People lost 15% on their bank accounts. So this can be repeated all over Europe. So when you have a crypto bullion, you are protected basically. You have the silver, you have the crypto. You are not in the hands of the bankers.
What do you make of this recent street protests where you've got whole groups of people out there protesting against the European Central Bank?
That's happening all over Europe.
Right. They're not protesting against the capitalists or necessarily, or against you know they're specifically targeting the bank, the central bank.
Yeah, sure.
So is this message, I mean, it seems to play perfectly into this whole campaign of crypto crowdfunded bullion because it's the only way that people can escape.
People are worried. There is a lot of silence, right? And people are very worried. So I think we should really spread the message, right, about the alternative ways to protect their wealth for people. And people nowadays, they're not aware of this. Only the young, mostly young people, they already start to know about silver, about cryptocurrencies, all that. But it's not spread. We need, in fact, to bring this to the general public. And that's what we want to do with the Crypto Bullion Project.
All right, let's talk about the future. So you've got the silver in Portugal. You source it from...
In fact, our company is based in Estonia. So
The
it's-
company's in Estonia,
yeah,
which, by the way, you don't pay
European
VAT
mix.
on silver.
Exactly.
On silver legal tender. Legal tender coins is VAT-free silver in Estonia, so that's why we were there. European Mint is in Estonia because of that. And in fact, that's how I met Mike. He was one of my customers.
So you got Estonia for the VAT arbitrage,
Exactly.
essentially.
Yes.
You've
Yeah.
got Portugal for the silver,
For
the actual
minting
stuff coming
and-
out of the ground. It comes, This is where mine is.
Yes, in
Yeah.
fact, you know, when
You've got the design and the hologram, and you're a big player in the crypto market, the Max Coin market. You're one of the founders and others, along with Luke.
Yep.
Where's Luke? Where's Luke now? Luke, come back. So Luke's got to come back. But gentlemen, we're out of time. We will continue to track this project going forward. Thanks so much for being on the Keiser Report.
Thanks, Max.
Thank you.
And that's going to do it for this edition of the Keiser Report with me, Max Keiser, and Stacey Herbert. I'd like to thank our guests, Mike Murphy and Tiago Lorenzo. If you'd like to get in touch, tweet us at Keiser Report. Till next time, bye, y'all.